You are going to hurt people in life. You are going to upset people. You are going to make people angry. People are going to think you're rude. People are going to think you're inconsiderate. And there's nothing you can really do to stop that. But when we have social anxiety, we feel like it is our job to monitor everyone else's emotions. And this is part of the reason we feel so anxious. We're constantly doubting ourselves, wondering, am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to upset this person? Am I going to hurt this person? Am I going to say something that's rude, off-putting, whatever? The answer to that question is yes. You are going to do that. There is no way you can prevent yourself from doing that. And as hard as you try, you may be able to cut it down a little bit, but ultimately, you can't control other people's emotions, their mind, their perceptions. Even if you try really hard, even if your intentions are good, even if you don't want to hurt anybody, you are still going to do things that are going to hurt people. And the minute you can accept that, freedom will come. But if you fight that, if you feel it is your job and your duty to be good and to be kind and to never disturb anyone ever, you are going to be anxious the rest of your life. The reality is, we're human beings. We make mistakes. And we have to realize, even on our best day, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to do something that's going to hurt someone, that's going to upset someone, maybe intentionally, maybe not. We cannot be perfect. But as long as we believe that we need to be perfect, this is going to haunt us forever. And there are many reasons why you may feel this is the case about yourself. Maybe you had a very critical upbringing, and so you're very hard on yourself, and you believe that the only way to true love is unconditional regard, positive regard from other people. You have to be accepted. You have to be liked. Maybe this is something you were taught. Maybe this is just something you've always felt. But if we keep playing into this, we keep playing this game where we do everything in our power, we try to do everything in our power to make sure we never ruffle any feathers, you will always be anxious. And that's not even taking into consideration the fact that being nice and being kind isn't always the optimal solution to a problem. There are times where it's actually beneficial for you to stand up for yourself. It's actually beneficial for you to maybe even be a little rude to someone if they're crossing a boundary. And we don't even have to get into that. I'm talking about you just being flawed, you just being a flawed person, that you will inappropriately respond negatively when you shouldn't. You're going to say something rude sometimes when the person doesn't deserve that. You're going to say something that's going to come across the wrong way, even though you didn't mean it, and people are going to feel hurt. And we have to take this into two boxes here. The first box is you are flawed. The second box is other people are flawed. The first box means get off your high horse. Drop your ego. You have to understand that at the core of this is your ego. It is, right? Because you're over-identifying with this idea that you have to be this perfect being. And there's this conflict because you don't feel very good about yourself. And so you try to overcompensate that by being too good, too perfect. So you can't accept the fact that you're flawed. So you try to be too perfect. And that is that heightened ego. It's that moral superiority. Look at me, I'm doing the right thing, I'm good all the time. And that's contrasted with this feeling of constantly feeling never good enough. You're in this constant yo-yo that never seems to level out. We need to accept the fact that we are flawed people, we are human beings, and you're going to make a mistake. And mistakes don't mean that you are worthless. It does not mean you are unlikable. It doesn't mean that other people are not going to like you. One of the problems I really struggled with when I was struggling with my social anxiety was I was always afraid that people were going to be mad at me. And that if people were mad at me, they wouldn't want to be my friend anymore. They wouldn't want to be around me anymore. They wouldn't want to be in a relationship with me anymore. And what I've found as I've gotten older in my life is it's actually quite the opposite. Because the reality is People really only get mad at you when they care. People don't tend to really get mad if you're not really important in their life. People get mad at you because they have an expectation of you and then you disappoint them, or you do something that hurts them and they didn't expect you to do that, or because they're just so emotionally tied into you that maybe it's because of their own faulty perception that they misread a situation and so now they're upset with you. So the reality is that if you are upsetting someone close to you, obviously you don't want to be doing this all the time, but if someone in your life is mad at you, that can be a good sign. That means the person actually gives a damn. Would you rather find out that the people in your life were never angry with you ever? They were never upset with you ever? What would that mean about your relationship? It would probably mean it doesn't have much emotional depth. People get angry and then the anger passes and then they move forward, as long as it's not a continuous behavior. I mean, think of yourself. Have you been angry with people in the past? Now, maybe you're someone, a lot of times when we're people pleasers, we don't allow ourselves to feel angry. We don't like that emotion. We try to stay away from it. But I would think if you thought about it hard enough, you would recognize that, of course, you get angry. Of course, you get upset with your friend. Of course, you get upset with, again, maybe even people in public. But then do you go from, I'm angry, therefore I hate this person, therefore this person has zero worth to me? Of course not. Of course not. Now, are there going to be some people in your life who will do that? Yes, unfortunately there will. There are people with personality disorders. And what they do is they go from hot to cold. So they really, really like you. You do one thing wrong, and now you are punished. And maybe this is something you experienced growing up as a child, right? Maybe it was very hot and cold, very unpredictable. And so you were constantly feeling like you had to be on the other person's good side, your parents' good side, or wrath was coming. And that's a terrifying feeling as a child. And so then you project that into your future relationships, and you think that upsetting someone equals your worth. But that's not the case. In fact, it is the other person's inability to regulate their own emotions. It's their inability to see you as a whole person, to let you make mistakes, to let you fall short of expectations and make amends and apologize and move forward. And oftentimes that actually builds relationships. You know, it's not healthy when you have a relationship, whether it's romantic or friends or whatever, and there's never any conflict. We tend to think that no conflict, that means it's good. But that's not the case. If you're never having any conflict, that means there's probably resentment being built over time. And what's going to happen is there's either going to be an explosion of anger or there's just going to be a petering out of the relationship. So we have to realize that disappointing people, having people get upset with us, offending people, these negative things, they do not mean that we are worthless. They do not mean we have to start from scratch. They do not mean that we have to hate ourselves. So I've talked about before in the past about how we need to build a sense of self-compassion. And one of the ways you can do this is think about how you would talk to someone who you care about, a friend, a family member. And now we have to take that and put it inwardly. In fact, there's even some research to suggest that by changing the way you speak to yourself from the I form to the he, she, or you can even create a character. When you speak to yourself with a different pronoun and there's no longer the I, it actually takes away some of the emotional pain because you don't overly identify with it. So if you're struggling to give yourself that compassion, one way that you can try to help reflect and actually take that in is to say to yourself, you know what, I'm not going to use any I form. Literally write down whatever you're feeling, whatever you want to tell yourself, whatever you wish you could tell yourself. I want to forgive myself. I want to be okay with the fact that I'm going to make mistakes. But don't use the I. Put it in the he, she form. Make it as if it's a character in a story. Make it as if it's somebody in your life. Take it away from you for a minute. Write out the story, exactly how it happened. I was 20 minutes late to my friend's party. They seemed disappointed. I was really embarrassed, and now I feel like the worst friend ever. Rewrite that story. Steve showed up 20 minutes late to his friend's party because Steve had a really tough morning, because he found out that he lost his job or whatever happened in the day that kind of threw you off your momentum. Write the story out as if it's someone else and see if you can connect with the character in the story. And then remind yourself, oh, that's me. That character in the story is me. I'm talking about myself, and I deserve the same compassion, the same grace that I would give someone else. Okay, so that's the first box. That's ourself. How are we going to talk to ourselves? How are we going to think about ourselves differently? The second box is other people. One of the things we have to realize is that other people are flawed. Yes, sometimes we do things offensively and we make bad jokes and we hurt people's feelings, but other times people take offense to things. Other times people get upset because they're in a bad mood. I'm sure you've had this happen. You say hello to someone on the street and they just give you a scowl. You didn't do anything. You didn't say anything rude, but they're just upset. And now they're going to try to make you feel like you've disrupted their peace. Did you actually disrupt their peace, or are they just on a cranky day? Are they just having a bad day? This also happens in relationships. Sometimes people are just in a bad mood, or sometimes people read into things that aren't actually there. They get upset about something you did because they assume an intention that wasn't actually part of the process. Now, that doesn't mean we have to dismiss their experience and tell them they're crazy. We should still listen to them and hear them out and try to understand them. But we have to understand that just because someone else is mad at us, it doesn't actually mean that we did anything wrong. Okay? And in the worst case scenario, and this is probably not the case for your close relationships, though it could be, in the worst case scenario, people will use that to manipulate people. They will use the fact that their anger or their upset will change the way the other person feels or change the other person's behavior, and they will use that to try to manipulate the person to get what they want. I mean, this is just classic guilt tripping, right? Laying it on too thick to make the person feel more guilty so they can get what they want. So this is the other problem of being too focused on how other people feel, is because in the wrong hands, there will be people who will use that against you. They will intentionally try to manipulate you. And if you're not aware enough, or let's say in good enough control of your emotions, you are going to let this person dictate how you should feel, even though you've done nothing wrong. And even though it's quite clear they are trying to guilt you, they're trying to manipulate you. So this is the other reason that sometimes we have to question other people's responses and other people's actions. If you can master these two things, becoming more empathetic to yourself, more compassionate towards yourself, more understanding of your own mistakes, and simultaneously understanding that other people make mistakes. And that also requires compassion and curiosity. It requires compassion for the person that, hey, they're going to make mistakes and they're going to overreact and they're going to get upset even when they shouldn't. But also understanding, being curious about human beings and understanding that, hey, some people don't always mean well. Some people are actively trying to harm. Those are the rare cases, but they do exist. And I have to be aware enough to understand that if I'm feeling guilty and someone is laying it on thick, and no matter how much I apologize, they just keep laying it on, or they bring up past experiences or past problems to make me feel guilty, I have to cut this off. I have to understand what is happening here so I don't get wrapped up in this anxious cycle of trying to make someone happy who's not interested in being happy. They're interested in hurting you. I hope you found this episode helpful. It's important to reflect on the way you relate to other people, both in your personal life and with strangers, and how fear and the fear of upsetting others increases our anxiety, because this is very, very common. Most people with social anxiety tend to be people pleasers, and they're always aware of how other people feel. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's good that you have empathy. It's good that you can see things from other perspectives, but you cannot let it consume you, because if you do, the anxiety will consume you. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.